He is the stuff of nightmares, a figure that haunts the darkest corners of our minds, a specter of terror that refuses to be forgotten. His presence is felt even in the silence, a chilling reminder of the evil that can reside within a human soul. A name whispered in hushed tones, a name that sends shivers down the spine of those who dare to speak it. In the dimly lit corners of society, his name is a forbidden utterance, a taboo that carries the weight of unspeakable horrors. Robert Maudsley, a man dubbed the real-life Hannibal Lecter, embodies the darkest depths of human cruelty. His eyes, cold and unfeeling, tell a story of a man who has crossed the boundaries of sanity and morality. A man whose actions have left an indelible mark on the annals of criminal history. His crimes, a grotesque tapestry of violence and madness, have secured his place in the annals of criminal history. Each act of brutality, each moment of savagery, is a thread in the macabre fabric of his legacy. The courtrooms echoed with the tales of his heinous deeds, and the prison walls bore witness to his unrelenting malevolence. Maudsley's story is not for the faint of heart. It is a narrative steeped in blood and terror, a journey through the mind of a man who has embraced the monstrous within. His tale is a harrowing exploration of the capacity for evil that lies dormant in the human psyche. It is a chilling descent into the abyss of human depravity, a stark reminder of the monsters that lurk beneath the surface of humanity. As we walk through the shadowy corridors of his life, we are confronted with the unsettling truth that the line between man and monster is perilously thin. A stark reminder of the monsters that lurk beneath the surface of humanity. In the end, Robert Maudsley's story is a cautionary tale, a grim warning of what can happen when the darkness within is allowed to take control. It is a story that forces us to confront our own fears, to acknowledge the potential for evil that exists within us all. Robert John Maudsley's life began in Toxteth, Liverpool, in 1953. Abandoned by his parents, he and his siblings endured a childhood marred by neglect and abuse in the harsh confines of orphanages. These early experiences left an indelible mark on young Robert, twisting his psyche and planting the seeds of rage and violence that would later blossom into unspeakable acts. In 1974, at the age of 21, Maudsley committed his first murder. John Farrell, a man who had picked him up for sex, became the first victim of Maudsley's simmering rage. The brutality of the murder, the sheer savagery inflicted upon Farrell's body, shocked even seasoned detectives. This marked the beginning of Maudsley's descent into a maelstrom of violence from which there would be no return. Deemed unfit to stand trial, Maudsley was confined to Broadmoor Hospital, a high-security psychiatric facility. It was within these walls that his murderous tendencies escalated. In a horrific display of violence, Maudsley and another patient, David Cheeseman, barricaded themselves in a room with a third patient, George Thornley. What followed was a scene of unimaginable brutality. Thornley was subjected to hours of torture, his skull crushed, and part of his brain eaten by Maudsley. Diagnosis: paranoid schizophrenia, a mind unhinged. Following the Broadmoor killings, Maudsley was diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia. This diagnosis offered a glimpse into the chaotic workings of his mind, a mind plagued by delusions and hallucinations. Experts believe his violent outbursts stemmed from a deep-seated belief that his victims deserved punishment for perceived wrongs. Life in the box. Solitary confinement and the silence of the damned. Imagine a life where the only sounds you hear are your own thoughts echoing off the cold, unyielding walls. This is the reality for many who find themselves in solitary confinement, a place where time seems to stand still and the outside world becomes a distant memory. Since 1983, Robert Maudsley has been confined to a specially constructed glass cell in the depths of Wakefield Prison, known as the Hannibal Lecter cell. This cell, designed to contain one of the most dangerous men in the British penal system, is a stark reminder of the lengths to which society will go to protect itself from those deemed too dangerous to be among the general population. Deemed too dangerous to mingle with other inmates, Maudsley spends 23 hours a day in this concrete and steel cage. The cell is a mere 5.5 meters by 4.5 meters, with a concrete slab for a bed, a steel toilet, and a small sink. The walls are bare, the air is stale, and the silence is deafening. For 1 hour each day, he is allowed to exercise in a larger cage. But even this brief respite is a lonely affair, with no human contact allowed. His only contact with the outside world is through a small slot in the door, through which he receives food and minimal human interaction. The guards, trained to maintain a professional distance, offer no comfort or conversation. The isolation is complete, the silence unbroken except for the occasional clank of metal on metal as the slot is opened and closed. This is the life of Robert Maudsley, a man condemned to live out his days in the silence of the damned. The Hannibal Lecter connection. Fact, fiction, and the fascination with evil. Maudsley's gruesome crimes and his chilling intelligence have earned him comparisons to Hannibal Lecter, the fictional cannibalistic psychiatrist from Thomas Harris's novels. While the fictional Lecter possesses a certain charm, Maudsley's story is devoid of such romanticism. He stands as a stark reminder that true evil exists not in the realm of fiction, but in the hearts of real men. The Enigma of Robert Maudsley. A glimpse into the abyss. Robert Maudsley remains an enigma, a chilling puzzle that continues to fascinate and repel in equal measure. Is he a victim of circumstance, a product of a brutal upbringing that irrevocably warped his mind? Or is he inherently evil, a monster born with an unquenchable thirst for blood? The answer, like Maudsley himself, remains locked away in the darkest corners of the human psyche. The legacy of a monster. Maudsley's impact on popular culture. Maudsley's story, while deeply disturbing, has had a profound impact on popular culture. His case has been the subject of documentaries, books, and countless articles, each attempting to unravel the mystery of his descent into madness. He serves as a grim reminder of the fragility of the human psyche and the terrifying potential for violence that lies dormant within us all. Conclusion: A life in shadows, a name etched in infamy. Robert Maudsley, the real-life Hannibal Lecter, will forever be remembered as one of Britain's most notorious killers. His name is synonymous with brutality, his crimes a chilling testament to the depths of human depravity. Though he will likely spend the rest of his days in solitary confinement, his story continues to haunt us, a chilling reminder of the monsters that lurk in the shadows of humanity. But who was Robert Maudsley before he became a name etched in infamy? Born in Liverpool in 1953, Maudsley's early life was marred by abuse and neglect. He spent his childhood in a series of orphanages and foster homes, where he was subjected to unimaginable cruelty. These formative years, filled with pain and suffering, set the stage for the darkness that would later consume him. As a young man, Maudsley found himself on the streets, struggling with addiction and mental health issues. It was during this turbulent period that he committed his first murder, killing a man who had allegedly propositioned him for sex. This act of violence marked the beginning of a downward spiral that would see Maudsley become one of the most feared and reviled figures in British criminal history. In prison, Maudsley's violent tendencies only escalated. He earned the nickname Hannibal the Cannibal after allegedly eating part of one of his victims' brains. His notoriety grew with each gruesome act, and he was eventually deemed too dangerous to be housed with other inmates. Today, he resides in a specially constructed cell in Wakefield Prison, where he spends 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. Despite the horror of his crimes, Maudsley's story is a tragic one. It is a tale of a man who was failed by the system at every turn, from his abusive childhood to his untreated mental health issues. While his actions can never be excused, they serve as a stark reminder of the consequences of neglect and the importance of addressing the root causes of violence. As we reflect on Robert Maudsley's life, we are left with a chilling question. How many more monsters are lurking in the shadows, waiting to be unleashed? His story is a haunting testament to the darkness that can reside within the human soul, and a sobering reminder of the need for compassion and understanding in a world that can often be cruel and unfair.